Okay, so today I've decided I've got this suggestion from a friend a long time ago. I've decided it's time to teach people how to play some basic piano. I've always wanted to do this. It's just it's taken me some time to kind of sort through and review, the first elements I ever learned from, the first basic steps. I learned from a teacher named Joni Clark years and years ago how to do this. I was 8 years old at the time. So, I was a hyper young lad who was honestly not very interested in learning at first piano because I wanted to play football with my cousins. So, but what should tell you something is all the years where I played in recitals and, I made just a lot of really, really rewarding things happen for myself. There were some accomplishments for me that I felt were just, something to remember. I've done some things that have had, a significant impact in terms of, the notes I've played, the passion I've used, and just the creative styles, the rhythms I've learned. It's shaped who I am today. It's shaped a lot of how I've become, far more expressive, far more versatile in how I play piano. And I'm going to show you how I got to that place because it took a while to really, just start firing away, to really be able to, launch into solos and really be able to put interpretation and improvisation in my music. So part of what I'm going to teach you today, let's just say this, it starts off with teaching you scales. So let's do this. I'm excited. My first ever time teaching piano through the webcam. Let's do it. You see, when you do scales, this is how you have to set it up. Middle C is your anchor, right? So anybody that's learning this, I don't care if you say that you're going to be sloppy. I don't care if you're a little bit, concerned and anxious about whether you're going to miss some notes. It doesn't matter. You just got to go for it. And you got to remember one thing. Middle C is your anchor point. It literally is the center of the keyboard. It is where you start off from. In fact, middle C is what many of the critical major scales are centered around. That's what it's established around because it interconnects with all of the other notes in the triad. So I'm going to teach you how this goes. First off, the key of C is the first thing I learned. And I'm not going to tell you to go into double-handed rhythm because that's really hard to do as a beginner. I got to tell you this. People freeze up when they try this. I did too. So even though I'm far more advanced in my playing now, I'm just going to show you how to do it with one hand. Middle C, let's go. And going back down the scale. Notice that many people try to use the hunt and peck method. A lot of people will just try to randomly, dance around and skip around notes with like their index finger. See, that's the thing I had to break my habit of too. I had that bad habit. You always want to start out with your thumb. It's just like on a computer keyboard. Your thumb sits on the home row keys. C, D, E, F, and G. And you got to cross over. And the way you cross over is always with your thumb. I'm going to teach you more about this when I'm able to reveal some of the harmonic and melodic scales. I got to dig back and actually have a library of that to show you. But the most important thing to remember, let your thumb cross over it and don't force it. Just let it come naturally. That's part of it. And the other way I'm going to show you is starting off from the bass clef. Now, remember, what I just played was a treble clef. The bass clef is entirely different, but almost the same. It's just going upwards, and some of the notes are in a totally different section than what's in the treble clef octave. So here we go. Start off with your pinky finger on C. So that's a C scale right there. This is really how you build your knowledge of it. In general, you got to define it like this. Piano is an art, and part of that art requires you to be disciplined, requires you to be patient, because, like I said, when you're first learning these scales, you just don't know what the hell the notes are called, right? There's a simple way to kind of be able to define this. I'm going to show you one way of doing it. when we're talking about some of the central aspects, of learning the being able to when you're trying to locate what they call some of the most frequently active used notes in the major scale. It's not just the C scale. This involves what I have to call this. If you're trying to learn notes on spaces, remember FACE. What this means, essentially, those are the notes in the spaces. Now, there's no sharps and flats I'm showing you. It's just natural keys. It's just natural keys, no accidentals, nothing like that. So those notes right there, that is basically what's going to dictate if you're playing a song and you got to have it in a certain key signature. You find that key signature based on using those notes, because that is right there in itself a triad, F-A-C. And if you add an E into it, I believe that's what's called an F7 chord. I learned this a while back from a guy named Mark Croker. Got to give him a lot of compliments for teaching me this kind of stuff right here. I love you, Mark. Man, you really did. You got me blasting off. You got me really able to really, drive home some of the important concepts you taught me. It sticks with me to this day. It's ingrained in me. Thank you so much, bro. I mean, you did everything, teaching me, how one scale connects to the other and how you have to move your hands in order to be able to transition between notes in the middle of the scales and all. So props to you, Mark Croker. You're a great guy. So that's FACE, right? This is how you start off learning some of the spaces. Now, the lines, see, this is what's called the treble clef, right? And you have to have lines and spaces. It's like a lot of other things in terms of patterns. You got to be able to have separate, when I call it sections, but separate dimensions on the treble clef. Same thing with the bass clef. I'm not going to get into that right now because I would have to be able to show you, the difference in how you're arranging the notes, because it's the left hand. But in the right hand, what it means is you're learning where you start off a song, and you're learning the direction it's headed in. You're learning how the measures are supposed to be lined up. So basically, it comes down to what I was saying when I was explaining that, there's sections and dimensions. It's meaning that, for example, if you want lines on a treble clef, you got to start with something called this. I think it's every good bird does fly, every good boy deserves fudge, something like that. So I'm especially doing this for Lauren Meeker because I got to give a lot of praise to my friend. He wanted me to be able to really teach, the depth of my knowledge. So here it goes. This is the next lesson right here. Every good bird does fly, the spaces of the treble clef. Now see that right there, I can't remember if it's augmented or diminished. Now that is kind of an odd chord. The beauty of it is the notes, they all interrelate to each other. That's honestly, that right there is, I call this, some of the key values of learning the lines and everything. This right here displays the diversity of the keyboard, because it's not just a triad chord like this, E minor, right? And that's three notes, E, G, and B. I mean, you're incorporating every good bird deserves fudge. So there we go. Yeah, E, B, D, and F. You're incorporating 1, 2, 3, 4 notes together, and they're spread out. And the beauty of it is, like I said, it's got that, just a little bit of dissonance. It's got that just slightly sour sound, but you can resolve it by doing it like this. You can drop it down, and a chord transfer like this will make it into an E minor. So the basic fact of it is, what I love about that is being able to, I call that, being able to shift, being able to really rearrange your position, being able to show the differences between the higher notes and then the regular triad. I think that's very important for people to learn. For example, I can use this in a song right here. This is what I'm going to show you. Amazing Grace. What chords am I using right there? That's C and F. Remember, I'm talking about face. I'm using a lot of all of the, what do you call that? The space notes right there. And, for example, when you dig into rhythm, which I'll do in the next lesson, what it really means, what it really defines right here, if you're using spaces on a keyboard, it gives that bright sound, and it gives that cheerful sound to what you're doing. When you want to have something that's, rich and, on point like that, that's what it's really doing. It's just the clarity of what you're doing right there is found in the key of C. And you're using the key of C, and you're using those space notes in a way that represents, you got to represent the baseline melody, the primary theme of the song, because that's how it starts out. Amazing Grace, how sweet. It dips from C to F. So that's how you learn it. You learn it by knowing what the names of the notes are, and you learn it by seeing what intervals of chords you're doing too. Because like I said, what is so critical is figuring out how these triad chords, meaning 3 notes in a combination, or how these altered chords like diminished, augmented, how they are supposed to be demonstrated, presented in the music. Another one I can show you, it became the key of E minor. I'm trying to think of this song here. Hold on a second. Let me see. Eminem, Mockingbird, right? Okay, so part of what I'm showing you right there, every good boy deserves fudge, right? Check this out. The E and the G are all incorporated, right? Every good bird. And the B's in there too. The D's in there as well. Now the difference is I'm using an F sharp, right? Because in that song, I don't have too many examples of ones that just have an F natural. So unfortunately, I showed you an accidental. I was going to get into that in the next lesson. But anyways, let's shake that off for now. What I'm showing you, though, the building blocks. This is very important for people to understand. Piano is an instrument where you do have to basically arrange it all off of scales, right? And you have to be able to have a key signature and notes that are well established. When I say well established, the congruency and the consistency has to be there. So part of that is by knowing what the names of those notes are and knowing the appropriate timing, the appropriate measures to break them into and play them. I think that's going to be it for today. I think I'll close off. I got kind of a cool melody I can play real quick, so I want to show you. It's part of using the C scale, actually. So I wanted to show something like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because it's a beautiful song and it incorporates part of what I taught today. That's it for today. First lesson's over. Peace.